Can you guys hear that? Hear that jam? Let me know if you guys can hear it. We're back, baby. Back to Europa. We're back. Let me know if you guys can hear me. You guys can hear it? If you guys can't hear it, let me know. Let's see. We're back, baby. Okay, I'll stop torturing you guys. I'll stop torturing you guys. Welcome to SheKnowsArsenal. My name is Jessica. I'm your host. You can follow me on Twitter at JustinoTweets and at SheKnowsArsenal. Welcome to our match review for Arsenal 5, Everton 1. What a game. What a game. What a game. No, not really. Not what a game. Look, what I want to say is that there's a lot to unpack here. There's a lot to unpack here. And over the last couple of streams, we have unpacked some of it. We've kind of talked about how we got here and why we're not listening to the Champions League anthem right now, why we're not celebrating sitting in fourth, why we feel like maybe the progression is not as much as it should have been. But, you know, ultimately, we got to put this behind us, learn from our mistakes, and go again. And Arsenal cannot sit around, the players, the manager, the board cannot sit around and feel sorry for themselves, because ultimately the reason why we're not sitting there in that fourth spot is because of us. You know, it's not the referees, it's not voodoo, it's not magic, it's not luck. It's everything that we've done up until this point was not good enough to qualify for the top four. And we all have versions of our own truth that explain why we haven't made it. There's been a lot of talk around the January transfer window and the fact that, you know, Spurs went out and got Bentancur and Kulusevski, and those two players have been a part of the resurgence of Spurs past January. Maybe the difference between Conte and Arteta, the tactics that Arteta employed during our 3-game losing streak against Crystal Palace, Brighton, and Southampton, putting a lot of faith in senior players, having very, very average backups. You know, we all have our reasons for why we didn't make it. But ultimately, if we can just make sure that those reasons are not outside of our control, which they weren't out of our control, we can have honest conversations about how to get to Champions League in the future. And that's pretty much where I am at this point. It's when I hear Spurs got lucky, it's not that they got lucky. We had a lot of luck this season, as far as I'm concerned. I don't think all of our games represent our performances. I think you ultimately deserve what you get. If you win the game, it's because you deserve to. But that doesn't mean that there wasn't luck involved. But the idea that Spurs just got really, really lucky and we were really, really unlucky, I think is not really being honest about how we performed in the run-in. You know, the run-in is what really caught us up. As basically from the Crystal Palace game on, you could have guessed, like, we could have done anything. We could have won the game or lost the game. And before that, we could kind of guarantee that we would win our home games and do really well in away games against the top, or the teams outside of the top six. It just became pretty much a grab bag of results from, you know, the moment Thomas Partey went down beyond. So we just finish where we deserve to finish, and fifth place is where we deserve to get it. And we just have to kind of suck it up. Tough shit. We weren't good enough. It is what it is. So in regards to the game, I think that, like, it was Everton were on the beach. They have already, you know, secured safety. And so if we did anything but smash them, it would have been pathetic, frankly. And we were dominant, and then we were unprofessional towards the end of the first half and let them score a really easy goal. Then we came out in the second half and Odegaard scored a goal and Cedric of all people scored a goal, and it was what it was, but ultimately this season just feels, and you could see it in the stadium. Up until this point, the Emirates has been rocking. The support was there, but it definitely wasn't the same level of excitement that we've seen throughout the season. And I think it's just the realization that there wasn't much to play for. It was pretty much like a lost cause. I know that there were some Arsenal fans that had held out some faith in Norwich getting a result against Spurs. But I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but this is not the same Spurs that we saw a couple seasons ago. Um, there is a mentality shift there. Um, and that's a big reason why they ended up, you know, getting a draw against Liverpool, then beating us, and then beating Burnley, because they had the mentality to go with the talent that they have. And, they were never losing to Norwich. They just weren't. And they were always going to smash them. It's just they're just, Conte has helped them create a little bit of a foundation to get them over the line, and we didn't quite build that same foundation. We have a lot of mental fragility when it comes to the games that matter, and that's ultimately what kicked us in the ass. But the game was what it was. We dominated possession, we put them under pressure. We scored, I think, four goals from set plays, or not from the run of play, and then Odegaard's goal, I think, was the only one that was from open play. It was what it was, and so I can see where the kind of malaise and the lack of energy is coming from the Arsenal fan base, because we know how close we were to qualifying for Champions League. And I think the closer you are, and the fact that it was only a difference of 2 points, like, that's the difference. That's, instead of losing to Brighton, you beat them. Instead of losing to Southampton, you beat them. Instead of losing to Brentford, you beat them. Instead of losing to Everton, you beat them. And so being so close in a season where, there was a lot of hope and optimism around this team, it hurts. And I don't think anybody is in the wrong for being hurt. I see a lot of, kind of get over it. We finished in fifth, and this is a young team that's growing, and la la la. We all kind of know that. But ultimately, as an Arsenal fan, finishing outside of the top four, 6 years in a row, and your arch rivals pipping you to the spot, and the reality that a lot of our contemporaries were really bad this season, in particular United, Spurs, and Leicester. It's not really that I can understand why people are kind of freaking out about it. And so there's a lot of emphasis and eyes on our summer transfer window, and a lot of pressure on Arteta and Edu to right the wrongs of the season and make sure that we don't see some of the same issues that we saw the season prior. Because I have to be honest, I saw a lot of the same issues this season in the run-in that I did last season. So they weren't taken care of. Um, Losing Kieran Tierney, and then our season falling apart, losing Thomas Partey, season falling apart, when it really matters, not having the mentality to get it over the line. Those things are all things that we saw last season. So they need to be righted this summer with more talent and quality in the side. And ultimately, I think that's what's missing. I think a lot has been made out of the mentality of the squad and making sure you get nice guys that really want to play for Arsenal. You can also get that and get more talented players. And that's ultimately what Arsenal need, is a lot more talent in the squad. So we don't have to see the likes of Cedric, Elneny, Tavares, and Holding, and Nketiah trying to hold us up in the business end of the season. At the business end, we should have been seeing our strongest lineup. And we ultimately saw one of the weakest going into the most important part of the season. And for me, that's a lack of preparation rather than, a lack of luck, if you want to call it that. So there's already 240 of you guys in here. I don't know. Somebody must have said to come over here, but like that video, y'all. Subscribe to the channel. Let's do it. Let's talk about it. Ify says they won Everton 5-1. Where was that performance against Newcastle? What a joke. There was no pressure on today. And ultimately, Everton were on the beach. They were drunk from, being able to secure safety against Crystal Palace. And we're at home in our nice, comfy blanket. Against Newcastle, like, you guys should have seen that coming. The performance against Spurs really informed what the mentality was like for that Arsenal team going into the Newcastle game. And Newcastle just had to be up for it. They just had to be up for it. And let's be honest, Everton didn't have to do much to get a goal in this game. We are a very easy team to play against, and if you just put a little bit of pressure on us, especially in this run in, you were going to score a goal. So the performance, like, this is such typical Arsenal, to when it matters not to perform, and when it doesn't matter or the pressure is off or we're chasing it, to get results. That's just how Arsenal is. The mentality is pretty much the same. That's what I've seen. They've made a lot of the mentality of this team and the fight in the spirit, but ultimately when it came down to it, they were the same. You know, it was the same. Justin says, I agree with in terms of the end of season being the same as last year. His first reaction was Xhaka at left back again. Yeah, I'd kind of said that, like, when the lineup came out and you saw the likes of Nketiah and Elneny and Xhaka in midfield and Holding and Tavares and Cedric, and I said something to the effect of, like, when you look at this team, it's really like it really put it's kind of crazy that we were even fighting for top four with this team in the run-in, because this is basically the team that we've seen a version of it since Crystal Palace, right? And then I got a flurry of, well, that's why Arteta is a miracle worker. Equally, that doesn't mean that we still didn't have a chance to get into the top four. Had we had our starting 11, our best team all the way up into the run-in, or we had even addressed some of our weak points in January, we would have been clear in the top four. We would have been probably 6 points clear. We probably would have beat Southampton and Brighton. But also Arteta made mistakes in the run-in. How he set us up against Spurs, how he set us up against Brighton and Southampton with Sambi as a single pivot. None of that stuff worked. So, Arteta kind of going back to his, panicking when he doesn't have his starting 11 and not putting us in a position where we can feel safe and kind of exposing the team further is also a reason, beyond injuries, why we didn't make it into the top four. So it's a cocktail of mistakes by the players, the board, and the manager that ultimately, led us into fifth. And this whole, Arteta being stressed out when we don't have our best team and putting Xhaka in left back and leaving Sambi exposed. It was so bad that we couldn't beat a bad Brighton team. It was so bad that we couldn't beat Southampton. I mean, that speaks volumes right there, right? Lord Gunnar says, Crystal Palace, Brighton, and Southampton, 9 points we threw away that could have put us onto third. We need depth. We do. We need depth, quality, especially because Arteta doesn't seem to have the answers when he doesn't have a starting 11. So he's going to be the type of manager, at least for the time that he's at Arsenal, that's going to need 2 top quality players in each position so that he can play his system and it can function, because he doesn't seem to have the ability to maneuver quick enough, and he wants to play the same way all the time. So we do need a lot of depth, but we also need to improve the starting 11, because the starting 11 isn't good enough either. That starting 11 was barely nicking top four, and it just, it had to be a sunny day at the Emirates and all that kind of stuff. We couldn't go behind. We had to always be kind of on the front foot, get the goals, and then kind of hold on to it. The margins were still very fine because we didn't have the striker, we didn't have the midfielder. We still need some pieces in the starting 11, and that's really the assignment for the board and Arteta, Edu, whoever in the summer, is to make sure that we get quality and depth and also improve the starting 11. That's going to be a very difficult job on a Europa League budget, especially when you see that the likes of, Fiorentina don't want to buy Lucas Torreira and Bellerin and these types of players. That's ultimately going to be a part of the transfer budget. So Edu has a huge job in front of him. He has to sell these fringe players that have been out on loan, Also, probably sell Ainsley Maitland-Niles, Pepe, sell a couple more players in order to bulk up the budget to make everything happen this summer. And it's going to be a hard job. Like, he may not have the facilities to do it, and that's one of my biggest issues. Coach Dave says, how much do people need to see to grasp the fact that Arteta is not the effing guy for the job? I don't know. Everybody has different opinions on that. O'Malley says Spurs score goals. Goals scored is the most important factor to getting into top four. Look at all the goals scored by the top four teams: 99, 94, 76, 69. Goals scored is always close to points total. You know what? Like O'Malley, that makes a lot of sense. And we know one of our biggest issues has been goal scoring this season. Nketiah is our top goal scorer in the Premier League. That says a lot. I think it's like him and Gabriel are like our top goal scorers in the Premier League. And Nketiah didn't start playing until Southampton. So that speaks volumes to where we were. And as much as I want to believe it's just about getting the right finishers in those positions, before before the second half, we should have been up 4 or 5-0 against Everton, but it was still a 2-1 game because we couldn't put the ball in the back of the net in open play. We have a really hard time scoring in open play. And then Everton get an easy goal and it's 2-1. If Everton needed to win that game, it would have been a different story. So we do need to score more goals, but equally I have some questions around the way that we play and if we're complicating things by wanting to play in a way that's not necessary for us to be a top four team. He has this grand plan, Arteta, of being able to play this positional play, juga de position, having these high quality players that can play in all positions and play with both feet and do all this kind of stuff. And ultimately, we just need players that can put the ball in the back of the net. And we need a system that allows our players to be free and play to the best of their ability. And I don't necessarily feel like we do that. So I don't know what's really going on with that, but I think it's a combination of not having finishers, having very young players in positions where we need the most quality. And then also the way that we play and how complicated it is makes it more difficult for us to score goals. Emery, we scored a lot of goals under Emery, and it wasn't great football, but ultimately it wasn't difficult for us to score goals because it wasn't complicated. And I think Arteta makes things very, very complicated. And ultimately, if he doesn't have world-class players in every single position and doubles of that, I think we're going to suffer. Jordan says, I rank the season a 7 out of 10. We have a young, talented squad, but it's too small. I'm thinking at least after the 3 first games, we had taken 5th all the way. Come on, you Gunners. I think this is a good idea that Jordan is doing. There's a 360 of you guys here. So make sure you guys like the video and subscribe to the channel, but also get in the chat box and let me know what you're ranking 1 through 10 of the season. Let me go ahead and make a banner of it because we're not going to rank the players because this game was a nothing game. I have to be honest. Like, it was nothing. There's no reason to really go into detail about it, but let's rank the season 1 through 10. I want to see what you guys have to say about that. Where do you guys rank the season? And make sure you guys get involved in the community poll. It's ultimately a question of if we overachieved or we failed. Let me know what you guys think about that as well. So yeah. Does this video really have less than 20 likes, you guys? There's almost 400 of you guys in here. I'm going to go look myself. If so, I'm very disappointed in you guys. Okay, there's like 70 likes, you guys. That's not good enough. Come on. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. I'm also I think 50 subscribers away from 8,000. If you guys could do that for me as well, that would be great. So let's see. CC says January can only be looked at as a failure now. That guy from London says next season is all about early transfers, tactics on attack to be improved, and improvements on mentality. Mackie says, and Lord help us if we went down 1-0 down. Exactly. That is a huge red flag to me that the mentality has not been fixed. They talked about it to death, the culture and all that kind of stuff. If the culture is not translating to the pitch, then it's not really a good culture. And the only type of culture that's a good one is a winning one. You only talk about culture when you're not doing good, when you're not playing well. And so this whole idea that the mentality of the team has changed is a farce. It hasn't. It's fragile. If we can't go behind and come back, if we can't turn up at Newcastle away when a top four is on the line, the mentality has not changed. We're still mentally fragile. Um, let's see. Um, let's see. 6 million says, don't forget ESR and Saka, just they are top goal scorers. They are. Lucas says ESR and Saka are just. I don't know. So what did? So I think. Hold on. Let me see. Because somebody said that it was Nketiah, but maybe it's not, and that would make sense. Let me find it really quick. And Nketiah is now Arsenal's top scoring striker for the season. That's what the quote was. So that says a lot about Lacazette, doesn't it? We've probably seen our last time seeing Lacazette, and that would be great. Let's see. CC says getting into the top four would have been papering over the cracks. Arsenal now have no excuses in the transfer market. They need to go big to keep up with the rest. Next year will make or break. I mean, who knows what they would have done if we would have gotten to the top four. They might have said we were fine, so I do agree with papering over the cracks type of thing. We have to be really real. I mean, we've basically been laid bare, in these last couple of games, and there's no really arguing away the fact that we don't have the depth and quality necessary to be in the top four. So if we had gotten it, who knows what we would have done. Mark says 6 out of 10. Matt G says, I'm a little sad that it's Laka's last ever game for Arsenal. Would have liked him to get a goal. Maybe I'll feel different in a couple of weeks or something. But ultimately, for me, Lacazette has been a poor signing. And he worked hard for a season or two. And one time he was our player of the season. But ultimately, I just can't. I don't know if I just don't feel much. You know what I mean? I've said this on the channel a couple of times. I never really felt connected to a lot of the players that we bought over the last 5 years because I never really felt like they were Arsenal quality and I couldn't understand why they were here. So ultimately, I'm happy to see the backside of them and I wish them the best. But I can't really say that I'm going to miss Lacazette or El Neni or any of these people, the Xhakas and the Mustafi. I just can't. They've been synonymous with this really poor version of Arsenal over the last 5 seasons. So I think I just have a bad taste in my mouth, but kind of happy to see the backside of him, to be honest. Mackie says 3 out of 10. Mustafa says a 5. Timmy says 7.5. Ragel says 6 out of 10 season. Yeah. I mean, it's mixed. It's a mixed bag. 8 out of 10. Name Block says 3. Jeff says 5 out of 10. We are bang average, nothing more, nothing less. Mark says 6 out of 10 met expectations from the beginning of the season, but where we were a few games left is a disappointment. I kind of talked about this on the Football Terrace that I feel we overall we progressed this season, not as much as a lot of Arsenal fans kind of said. A lot of Arsenal fans were getting very ahead of themselves and making it seem like this is the best Arsenal team that they've ever seen. But and projecting a lot on young players that ultimately hit a wall and were overplayed and overburdened. And so we progressed not as much as we thought we did. And so I'm not disappointed by finishing in 5th based on where we started, but I'm disappointed that we bottled the opportunity. And the opportunity to me is very separate than the season. The opportunity was there from January to really make sure that we were tactically ready and had the players available to get us over the line. And we didn't do that. So I'm upset that we bottled the opportunity, but I'm not going to lose my overall feeling around the season, which is we finished about where we deserved to. We finished about where I thought we would. And so we didn't overachieve or anything. We met expectations. And so that's kind of like the bare minimum of a season, is to meet the expectations. Um, let's see. CC says it was a 5 out of 10. A young squad, but nobody has forced Arsenal to go down the young guns road. Arsenal need to be getting into the top four at least. I mean, next season, my expectation is top four or bounce, and I don't have anything against the young players. And I'm not saying, CC, that you do. I think that there's a decent foundation there to build upon, but we ultimately need more quality, and we Arsenal deserve the best in class of everything. Um, the best director of football, the best medical staff, the best manager out there. That's what Arsenal deserves and should be working towards. But we've kind of settled with this group, this team that want to build a project that they've never built before. None of them have any sort of experience being successful building a project like this. And Josh seems very content with this group because they've played for Arsenal or something like that in the past. And so they trust that they know what Arsenal is all about. But ultimately, the best thing is to have the best experience people in class in every single position that you have. And we don't have that. And so with the players, I'm more invested in the players than I am with the people running the club. And they have a very difficult task ahead of them. And they should know that. Like, they should be looking at it and really, you know, taking a good hard look at themselves in the mirror and asking themselves, did they make a mistake? Not really going for it this season, because the idea that we're going to be able to improve our squad when everybody else is improving their squad and just walk into the top four because that's just what should happen, that's not how it works. And so they missed out on a huge opportunity, and now their back is up against it. I do think that the Arsenal fan base is going to be a lot less forgiving next season around young players FC, inexperienced FC. This is the beginning of the project FC. I don't really think there's going to be a lot of that. So next season is going to be very high pressure from the beginning. Stefan says a 5 out of 10. Eddie, a 7. Mackie says 3 out of 10 because no Europe and we still didn't get top four. Do we really think we can get top four next season when we're in Europe next season with Arteta? I mean, it's tough. I think not having Europe was supposed to be some sort of advantage. And for other teams, it has been. For Liverpool in the past and for Chelsea. Chelsea won the league without Europe, and Liverpool got into the top four without Europe. Those were different times, but at the same time, like, we had a team that missed out on it by 2 points. So we had the capabilities to do it. We just didn't do it because of multiple reasons. So for us not to be in Europe and for the return to be 2 points outside of the top four is really disappointing. And there's a lot of fans that went big on Europe is going to help us. And it didn't, because it didn't keep our squad players fresh. And it didn't give us another route into the top four. So Arsenal outside of Europe is never an advantage. It's never a good thing. It's never anything, especially when you have a novice manager that can't hold on to one competition and still be successful in another. It's very difficult to do. And Arteta is not very good at that. And I know that his squad wasn't great, but there's other teams out there that have very mediocre squads that are able to keep things ticking in multiple competitions. I guess somebody that you could name is David Moyes. Very average squad, very average group of players, was able to get at least to a Europa League semifinal and still qualify for Europe. We weren't able to do that just a season prior. And Moyes has what I would consider a way less bet. Like, our team is better than West Ham. So the difference has to be the manager. And I do see like this almost reluctance to place any sort of importance on the manager, and the fact that a manager could be the difference between top four and not. It's almost like, well, he's learning on the job, so we should expect it. We're Arsenal. Like, if he's not living up to the expectations of the club after 3 seasons, then there's a problem there, right? And you should at least be able to say it. Arteta has to get into the top four next season, and I think it's it's going to be really hard for him. I have to be honest. Elliot says 5 out of 10, no progression, no improvement. We are lucky to be where we are in the table. Lucas says only Premier League 7 out of 10, all competitions 5.5 out of 10. McKendy says we lost top four when we didn't buy in January. Just because we finished top five doesn't mean we'll finish top four next season. I 100% agree with that. I see that there's like I don't want to call it a delusion because I don't want to be mean, but it's kind of like the idea that, okay, well, we finished in fifth, so next season, fourth is ours. Who's going to drop out? Who's going to drop out of that top four? And Spurs now have Champions League money, the Champions League carrot, as well as a world-class manager. So that is going to be a huge differentiator in terms of who they can recruit and who they cannot. If they had finished in fifth and we had finished in fourth, we'd be able to get Osimhen. We'd be able to get top quality players. We can't get them now, but they can. Especially the manager makes a difference. It really, really does. I really get tired of hearing that it's not a difference maker. Don't think for a second that there's not players that are sitting there saying, you know what, Arsenal, big club, they could pay me the wages, but I'm not sure about this Arteta guy. Don't think for a second that's not happening out there. So, like, we don't have a divine right to get into the top four because we finished fifth this season. Leicester, since Vardy coming back, has won almost all their games. They will be back. They will be back. They'll sell some players, probably to us and some other teams, and reinvest into decent players. They're looking at a war, to replace Tielemans, who probably won't even come to Arsenal now, probably won't even pick up the phone. So they'll be back. Manchester United are not going to be anywhere near as bad as they were this season. Sorry, I hate to tell you, they won't. And so that's two teams right there. West Ham, they're not going to slow down. So that top four spot is looking real shaky. Unless we do a madness and all of a sudden everybody becomes really, really good, who knows? Who knows where we'll finish? Javishnu says, this season was just a six, so much potential going into the final stretch, but injuries and our mentality killed us. Next season, if there's no UCL or Europa League win, we have failed. Let's see. Freddie says, Jess, where is Igal? In the mud, perhaps? Look, Igal came for me a week ago, saying that I needed to apologize to him about top four. For what? We didn't make it. And the reason why I never bought into it is because I knew it would come down to the very, very, very last games, and we just might not have enough, especially after January. I said I didn't think we'd get it. So no, Igal is definitely in the mud, and he completely tore his draws this season. Tell me this. Says the Amazon documentary was almost amazing. Season is a 5.5 out of 10, ruined by the Brighton and Southampton defeats. I mean, where do you guys think what the season was kind of lost and won here? Was it in the summer transfer window where we bought Ramsdale and White? Do you think it was the January transfer window where we decided not to buy anybody and then also weaken the squad? Do you think it was in those Brighton and Southampton defeats? Because we could have not bought anybody and just won one of those games and it would have been fine, Or do you think it was Newcastle and North London Derby, and we should have performed better there? What do you guys think? Because everybody, I think, has a unique turning point in where we won and lost this season. I personally think it was in January when we didn't do anything and we weakened the squad. But I can also see where it was Southampton and Brighton, because you can't tell me we didn't have enough to beat those teams. I think Arteta made a mistake with his tactics there, and putting Granit Xhaka at left back against Brighton and having Sambi as a lone pivot. That didn't work. Don B says 6. You can build from this as a Man United fan. Yeah, maybe. Saida says, Jess, I'm so upset that Luis Campos is about to join PSG. Edu has set us back so much. There's been good managers and really good directors of football that have been without jobs for a while, or even in jobs that we've just decided not to go after because we have settled with Arteta and Edu, and that's on us. Arsenal deserved the best, and if we had real ambition, we probably would have the best in class in the positions that we can control. But we don't because we're going with the project. So that's all I really say on that. Um, Isle Hood says if we didn't fail or overachieve, we just achieved the minimum goal, but we would have overachieved with top four, in my opinion. Alan Cook says a 7 out of 10. Everyone said top six was our target, and we achieved it with a young and thin squad. Ashley Dyer says 9 out of 10. It's the best season we had in 5. Okay, we didn't make it, which we would have, which would have been a 10, but it would have been to the wire. We fell at the last, but the stadium is rocking and so much fun. I respect that opinion. And I think that there's a lot of fans that go to the games and stuff that feel differently than the fans online around the season. There's an optimism and an energy and an excitement around this young team. And, there is a foundation there of talented players. I think that Tomiyasu, Ramsdale, Ben White, and Odegaard have been good signings. You can't really convince me otherwise. I think Bukayo Saka has really improved this season. I think there's still some room to grow from Smith Rowe and Martinelli, but I've seen good things from them as well. So there are some positives there. So I can hear that. I hear that. The only thing I'll push back on is that this isn't our best season in 5 because Emery got to a Europa League final and was within 1 point of the top 4, and that was a much better season than this one. Even though we didn't feel as good about it results wise, that was a better season. But I hear what you're saying. And again, I do understand that the feeling in the stadium with match going fans is completely different than the ones that are outside of they don't go to games. I get that. Chiang says Arsenal breakdown in crucial matches, losing to Spurs and Newcastle. We need a big reorganization in the team. No more excuses next season. There's clearly a lack of depth in this team. There's a lack of depth. There's a lack of quality in the starting 11 as well. Like, I think we massively overrate some of the players that we have, especially at striker and midfield. I do think that if you have a top player in Xhaka's position and a top player in Lacazette's position, you get into the Champions League. So it's not just about the depth, it's about the starting 11 and the mentality. I'll be really interested to see if we have a hangover next season from the disappointment of this one. Because what I know about Arsenal is that they tend to hold on to things. And I hope that this team is not traumatized by their failure of getting top 4 this season. They need to rebound. And that's the good thing about having young players, is that they're supposed to be able to shake off things faster, kind of like how Bukayo Saka did with the missed penalty. Ramsdale, Ben White, Gabriel, Tomiyasu, Emil Smith Rowe, and Martinelli, they have to shake this off. They have to shake it off and realize that they didn't do well, but or they didn't do what they wanted to do, but they need to fight for it next season and not feel sorry for themselves. You know what I mean? Let's see. The Glorious Pyro Cheems says Arsenal had everything in their hands to finish top 4 and blew it in the last few weeks, 6 out of 10. Osmond says we don't have a better squad than West Ham. Just you overrate your average and shit squad. Arteta turned water into wine with these jokers. No, West Ham doesn't have as good of a squad than us. They don't. I don't think so. There's nobody in the West Ham squad that gets into the starting besides Declan Rice and who, you know. I don't even think I overrate our squad. I think I rate it properly, where a lot of Arsenal fans feel like our squad was better than Man United's and way better than Spurs and way better than Chelsea's. We have a better squad than West Ham. Like, we don't need to go that far. We're better than West Ham, but probably not that much better than, probably equal to Spurs and Man United in how we performed. But ultimately, those two teams have game winners and we don't. But there's nobody in the West Ham squad that, besides Declan Rice, that really just gets in our squad. So I don't know. I don't really think that. And Arteta didn't turn water into wine with these jokers. Our starting 11 is way better than West Ham's. So there you go. We don't have to go too far. We don't have to be like totally, ridiculous. Um, Arnolito says we really need some reliable players that won't be injured for most of the season. We do. What I'll say about West Ham as well is that they're they're really well coached, and Moyes is a better coach than Arteta. So that's what I'll say. So I don't think that their squad is better than ours or their starting 11 is better than ours. I think we could have done more with what we had. You know what I mean? But Arteta's inexperience hurt us in some positions as well. Moyes was able to hold on to the league position as good as possible while they tried to compete in Europa League as well. Um, Lucas says my expectation for next season is at least 75 points in Europa final. I think that's going to be really, really hard. Um, I think we'll either do really well in the league and do really bad in Europe, or we'll do really good in Europe and do really poor in the league. I don't think we'll do both, because I don't think we'll improve the squad enough. Um, and Arteta still kind of showed those old faults of when things are not, he doesn't have his starting 11. He doesn't rotate well. When he doesn't have a starting 11, he kind of panics. So it'll be difficult for him to do both competitions. But we'll need at least mid 70s, I think, next season, like you said, to get into the top four. And I would expect to go far in that competition. Manchester United being in the Europa League makes it a lot more difficult because they will have a squad that can walk that competition. They will. So we're gonna be in a very difficult position. Um, let's see. Dr. Ken says we should have done better in the North London Derby and Newcastle. Osmond says name one player who can hit a 30-yard belter or one solo goal, one free kick specialist, prolific goal striker. Do our fullbacks contribute goals? Arteta turn water into wine. But he also shat the bed during Brighton and Southampton. So we can give him credit for getting us to this point, but ultimately some of his decisions kept him and that team from getting into the top four. So I give him credit for doing well with what we had, but he still had many opportunities to get into the top four. And I cannot overlook the North London Derby, not putting Tomiyasu on Son. I can't overlook Brighton and Southampton, where he completely panicked because he didn't have Tierney and Thomas Partey. So we've given him enough credit. I think we've given him so much credit. CC says, I think January also losing games in a row, not being able to bounce back quick enough. That's mentality as far as I'm concerned. I've been told so many times that that's just because of blank. It's just because of blank. If you lose a game and all of a sudden you have to lose two or three, that's mentality as far as I'm concerned. Let's see. Mackie says, agreed, January was such a big mistake. You can't be in the top four fight and decide to weaken the team. Was that arrogance, you guys? It feels like it might have been arrogance. I don't know if they thought it's sewn up. We got this. We have enough. We could just go with what we have. They were talking big shit when they gave Arteta that big contract or that new contract. It was chest puffed out. We're gonna do this. We're gonna do that. But we were in the driving seat of into top four. We had just won those 4 games on the bounce, and I feel like we might have been a little bit arrogant. Mark says January transfer window lost AMN, who could have played a bunch of different positions in the FA Cup run. AMN was our left wing back, so would not have to rely on Cedric and Tavares. I just wonder what happens with Arteta and some of these fringe players and why we can't keep them engaged. With Ainsley, the season prior, and Pepe, when we started last season, we had just won the FA Cup, and Ainsley Maitland-Niles and Pepe were a big part of that run-in, and they were just kind of shoved to the exterior of the squad for Willian, and whoever else. We started off the season against Fulham. We beat them 3-0, playing with a 3-4-3. I remember this so vividly. And then after a couple games, we moved to a 4-2-3-1, and we were not ready to move to a 4-2-3-1. We were still very much a three at the back team because we don't have a midfield and we didn't have strong defenders. And Pepe kind of got shuffled to the side, and Ainsley Maitland-Niles got shuffled to the side just because they weren't starting. Why did they have to be? Why were they so disengaged with what we were doing? One of my biggest gripes with Arteta is that when players are outside of the squad, they're virtually unusable, because they just don't feel engaged with what we're doing. And that's just not normal. Bergwijn didn't play many games for Spurs, especially under Conte, but still was able to come off of the bench and make significant, contributions to their top four fight. And I just don't understand this. Like, if you're not in the starting 11, then you're almost like not a part of the group. And then when we need you, they don't do much for us. And so that's a huge um, um, area of improvement for Mikel Arteta. He has got to figure out a way to keep people engaged, and keep the entire squad kind of happy and involved. And I know that they're not great players. Like, I get that they're not great players, but like, you still have to use them. You know what I mean? David says, and thank you so much for your super chat. I really appreciate it. Says Arsenal need about 8 more players, in my opinion. All the clubs around Arsenal will spend. Let's not forget my club, Newcastle. I'm excited for what we'll do in the summer. I expect a European finish. We'll see. We'll see with Newcastle. I do think you guys have done really well but you guys also spend a lot of money. But Eddie Howe did a good job, and so we'll see. There's going to be a lot of teams fighting for those positions. So we'll see. Matt says, Jess, do you think we'll get a decent fee for Pepe or we'll be forced to loan him out? I think we'll have to loan him out. I mean, look at what's happening with Torreira right now. He was basically Fiorentina's player of the season. He had their man of the match awards like 4 times this season, and they still don't want to pay the 15 million for him. So Pepe is somebody that we're probably going to have to loan out, a straight loan. Nobody's going to take a risk on a player that they don't know if is good or not. So, yeah, I think we'll end up loaning him out. We'll end up, who knows? Like, we could end up seeing Torreira and Bellerin on the preseason tour, because the people do not want to buy these players. Like, it's insane. So, yeah. Usopp's Rubber Band says Pepe had opportunities when he came on and didn't take advantage. Mikomo says it's not fair. He kept Elneny, Cedric, and even Lakanga engaged. Yeah, he did, but like, I get what you guys are trying to say, that he kept some players engaged and other players not, but like, you still need to keep more players engaged. Like, Ainsley Maitland-Niles could have been useful, Pepe could have been useful. Those are the two that I'm kind of talking about more than anything. And Cedric was engaged and still was crap, so no. Let's see. High Tech J says players get used in the cup games, but when we lose those games because the players are not good enough, it gets called arrogant. Fair enough. Ify says the truth is Arsenal had a chance for Champions League football, but they were not ready to be in it. That is not a good mentality to have, in my opinion. What I will say about these whole like, when you use the squad players, you lose and all this kind of stuff. When we're playing well, Arteta gets so much credit for it. It's him building the squad, it's him building their mentality and the culture shift and all this kind of stuff. When we lose, it's just the players aren't good enough and it's the squad players. But equally, everybody wanted to give all these players new contracts and wax lyrical and kiss their ass when we won a couple of games. So for me, when we lose with the squad players and they're out there walking around and they're just giving up soft goals and they're not mentally into the game, I still look at Arteta as a reason for that. The manager cannot get all the plaudits when we win games, but then we lose them. It's just the circumstances that he's in. Like, it's just not. It's just he has to have some blame in this. It can't just be the players all the time. Victor says, why do we have to loan Pepe out? Preseason should whet his appetite to prove himself wrong. Because honestly, I don't know if the lack of games that affected his confidence. The reason why we have to do something with Pepe is because he has 2 years left on his deal. A lot of times fans don't think about the contractual situation with a player. You cannot let a player go for free that we bought for 72 million. So this is our opportunity, if we're not going to give him a new deal, to move him on. Because once he moves into the last year of his contract, he is most certainly going for free. So that's why you have to loan him out to try to get suitors to buy him. I doubt anybody's going to chuck us 30 million for him off of the back of the season that he just had. So that is why we have to ultimately make a decision on him and Saliba as well, because they both have the same amount of years left. Coach Dave says, what grade do you give Arteta? It's kind of hard to know where you stand with him. You do a lot of flip-flopping. I said that Arteta, if he's got us into the top six, that he could stay so that we can see what he's like with his full team, with the striker, with the midfielder, and all that kind of stuff. I've been very consistent on that. And within that consistency, I've criticized him when necessary and given him credit when necessary. That's not necessarily flip flopping. I have always kind of stayed the same. And the only time that I wanted him out was off of the back of, I think, the first 3 games. And after that, I realized that I was wrong. And I came out and said that, I went Arteta out too soon. I want to see what he can do with his players. And from that moment on, I said he can stay if he at least gets us into the top six, which he did. But the thing about, you guys call flip-flopping if I don't like Arteta, then even when he does the right thing or does things that are good or winning games, I still call him crap. And I still give him credit where credit is due and criticize him where criticism is due. But ultimately, I've always been the same on it. Gets us into the top six, he can stay. Next season, if he doesn't get us into the top four, or if we start off poorly, he has to go. Not sure that's flip-flopping. I think that's having a balanced opinion that's not hyperbolic and just full of Paella Pulis and Arteta out, 250 million spent, eighth and eighth. Emery got sacked for less, the old bingo card. SK says Arsenal are not winning the league under Arteta. Fair enough. Saida says Pep slightly freezes out players out the same way Arteta does, but I think because at City there's more competition for places, the players there are always ready to step in and know they have to perform. Yeah, I think that's spot on. I think that Arteta kind of wants to be a Pep light, but he doesn't have Pep's resources, so he can't ultimately do the same things. And so I think for Arsenal's project, we kind of needed more of a Klopp than a Pep. We needed somebody that could work with what they have, motivate the squad, who can get, into the emotional side of the game, and not be so just about the tactics and the system and the plan A, plan A, plan A, plan A, plan A. So it's a difficult one, but I think they're kind of wanting to build some sort of team like that. It's just they can't, because they can't do it quick enough because we don't have the same type of ownership. Utah says, sadly, we should have known our season was over after January, but fell for it. That's why it still hurts. Yeah, I get the disappointment because we were so close. MD says the Brighton game was bad though. Xhaka at left back was not okay, but we were robbed Man City and Spurs. I don't know if we were necessarily robbed in those games. I think we panicked against Man City. We lost because we panicked. Xhaka fouled in the box, and Gabriel got a silly yellow card for dissent, and then turned around and fouled Gabriel Jesus on the halfway line. And we went down to 10 men. And we had like a really good opportunity, I think, to score the second goal right before we went down to 10 men, or right after we went down to 10 men. So we had more than enough opportunities to win the game against City. Ultimately, we panicked and we lost it because of us. We also didn't have to give up the last goal that Rodri scored. That was doing holding things. Against Spurs, nobody told Arteta to put holding on Son. That was a self-inflicted wound from Mikel Arteta, and ultimately our jitters and our lack of calmness and mentality, I think, got the best of us in that game as well. So we make it easy for the referees to take games away from us. So I can't really see the we were robbed, where I know that that gives us maybe some sort of comfort feeling like those big games were taken away from us and we were actually okay in them. Xhaka at left back was not okay for sure. That was a game that Arteta threw away, the one against Brighton for sure, because he panicked because we didn't have Thomas Partey. Usopp's rubber band says Aubameyang wasn't performing and didn't want to play for us. Replacing him was the problem, not letting him go. I agree with that. Gary says we'll finish behind Newcastle next season. Watch what they'll do in the summer. We won't win Europa League either. Roma will win. I don't know if Roma will win or not. You know, I don't know what will happen next season. Newcastle will be good next season. They're gonna. I know they're looking at Renan Lodi. They're also gonna get a striker. They're looking at Lucas Paqueta. That is a deal that if Edu was any sort of good DOF, he could get done for us, but we know he won't be able to because of reasons, you know. So the interesting thing about it is that like Newcastle have a very interesting project, but it's nowhere near where it will be in the next like maybe 4 seasons or so. But if they can attract Champions League level players without any Europe at all, because they won't have Europe at all, but what they can offer is high wages, so can we. So what is the difference? We don't need a low wage bill. We need to get quality players in our team. And if we have to pay top dollar and pay high wages to get it, we should do it. The only reason why we were talking about, you know, the wages being an issue is because we gave big contracts to players that because we were trying to keep them, you know, but sometimes to get players, you do have to spend the money. And so Newcastle will do a lot of giving high wages to players to get them from Champions League teams to them, and it'll pay off. We should be doing the exact same thing. There's no point in having low wages. Low wages is not a trophy. It's not something to be like running around cheering about. We have a nice wage bill. That's dumb. You know, we need to spend the money. I expect that wage bill to be higher, much higher next season. Yo-Yo says, we know Edu is a joke, but Arteta is a charlatan. I mean, Edu, like the fact that Newcastle will be able to get two prime age, pre and like they're pre-prime, but they're prime age Brazilian nationals into their team, but we can only seem to get a Marquinhos into our team is a freaking joke. It really is. Like, there's no point in having him as a DOF if we can't get into the front of the line for some of this Brazilian talent. MD says the idea Newcastle will finish ahead of us just because of what? They have nothing to really worry about. You know, they have nothing to worry about. They'll feel no pressure whatsoever, and they're going to recruit really well. They'll have Champions League level players in their team, and we don't have that right now. We need Champions League level players to bring this Europa League level team up. And so that takes spending the cash. You need to spend the money on the fee, and you need to spend the money on the wages. And Arsenal have bragged a whole hell of a lot, Edu and Arteta both, about getting that wage bill down. So there's no point in having it if you're not going to spend it. We don't need a low wage bill. You know, you don't need a low wage bill. You need to spend that money. But yeah, you guys, like, it is what it is. We won the game. It was kind of expected. It was a disappointing end to a season that had a lot of promise. And we have a lot of work to do over the summer. So that being said, there's still about 300 of you guys in here, which is amazing. So please make sure that you guys like the video, subscribe to the channel. This summer, I will be here obviously talking transfers with you guys. I am working on getting a transfer expert here to talk to you guys on a weekly basis about what's going on with Arsenal and our transfers. We are entering silly season and I'm all about it. You guys know I love talking transfers and stuff like that. Also, like I told you guys the other day, we'll be doing a show with Sophie from the Highbury squad next season, as well as Deluded Gooner. So that will be coming out. So make sure you guys have subscribed for that. And yeah, we'll just keep rolling on. We go again. We'll also have probably some thought, you know, not thought provoking, what the hell, but like shows more around the end of the season, rating the season, going into depth on squad building, where we kind of misstepped our predictions and kind of expectations of next season. Because I'm telling you guys right now, there's no reason for me to skirt around it. If we look like crap at the beginning of the season and we're going into November outside of the top four, we need to look at another manager. Like, it's just, it is what it is. We need to be in Champions League next season. 7 years outside of it is a joke, and it's getting more and more difficult. So if you can't do it now, you probably won't be able to do it. And so early expectations are from the minute go. And I don't care if we get Man City and Liverpool and Chelsea as the first 3 games of the season. Not getting a single point against the top two or even a goal against Liverpool is unacceptable for a team that thinks they're going to be in the Champions League. So the expectations are going to be really high. They might be unobtainable for this group, but it is what it is. So make sure you guys like the video, subscribe to the channel for that. Hopefully I've gotten to the 8,000 subscriber mark. That would be amazing. Please help me get there. Saida says, do you think Arteta would benefit more from having senior, older coaching staff around him? It looks like the majority of them are quite young. Absolutely. I think we need best in class, whatever that means. So not necessarily about experience, but we need better staff in every single position. And Arteta seems to like younger people around him so that he can have the level of authority, because I don't think he likes pushback, which is probably a reason why he makes decisions that hurt us in the end. There is no precedent for a young manager and a young DOF and a young team being successful in the Premier League. Somebody needs to have some experience, and the fact that we're just out here winging it with a bunch of inexperienced people at every single level, for me, is probably the reason why we're not as far along as we should be. Then that definitely has something to do with the coaching staff. I think he likes being in a position where he's not getting a lot of pushback, and nobody can look at anybody else as the smart one or the person to follow. That's just my take on it. He would benefit from that, but ultimately I think Arsenal would just benefit from having more experience in the positions that matter, on the pitch, in the coaching department, and in the DOF department. But that's just me. Let's see. I'll answer a couple more questions if you guys have them, because I don't want to leave you guys hanging. Tell Me This says, Saka, Smith Rowe, Martinelli are going to be linked to big clubs. Which do you sell? Which one do you keep? I mean, you got to keep Saka, for as long as you possibly can. But Smith Rowe and Martinelli, you guys know my thoughts on this. If you don't make the Champions League, you will lose your best players. The idea that just because they are tail end, or they go in the media and say things like, oh, I love the club and I want to stay here forever. We've heard that before. We've heard that before from many of our players, and they all leave when they figure that Arsenal are not going to progress. So get detached from some of these players, saying that, well, why wouldn't you want to play for the Arsenal? That doesn't mean much anymore. We're not a top team anymore. We're a big club that's really, really declined. So just, there's an opportunity for people to start looking at our players and wanting to poach them. Smith Rowe, I don't think any big clubs will be in for him this summer. Martinelli, I can see him going at some point. So that's just where, if I had to choose, I would sell Martinelli and keep Saka. I don't think anybody's going to be in for Smith Rowe. But that's just me. That's just me. All right, you guys. So make sure you guys are sharing this with a friend and all that kind of stuff. Great season. I've really appreciated you guys. This is my first full season doing She Knows Arsenal, and it's been an absolute blast. And I cannot wait to make things better for you guys and give you guys some more um, like high quality content. Like next season is going to be about high quality interviews with some of your favorite content creators and Arsenal personalities, trying to get really good guests on the channel, give you guys different looks and a different feel to the channel. So I'm doing this all for you guys and also for myself because it's fun. But yeah, I'll probably see you guys tomorrow. So it won't be too long. But enjoy your guys' summer. Enjoy. We go again. We suffer together. We have fun together. And up the Gunners. See you guys next season, if not tomorrow, for transfer.